The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was huge, with bright lights shining from thousands of windows. Ships from all over the galaxy came here to trade and do business. The station looked like a giant metal city in space. Jinho walked through the long hallways, his black diplomatic uniform making him look official and important. This was his first time away from Earth, and everything around him seemed impossible. Tall aliens with blue skin walked past him. Others had tentacles instead of arms. Some creatures were so strange that Jinho could not even guess what planet they came from. He was nervous but tried not to show it. Earth had sent him here to make a trade agreement with other worlds. If he succeeded, humans would be able to buy advanced technology and sell Earth's resources. If he failed, Earth would remain alone in the universe. The meeting room was enormous, with a table that could seat 50 beings. Jinho sat down and waited. He had studied the files about the Krex Empire, but reading about aliens was very different from meeting them in person. The door opened with a loud hiss, and Commander Veltar entered the room. Jinho's mouth fell open. The alien was nearly 3 meters tall, covered in dark green scales that looked like armor. His arms were thick and muscled, and his hands ended in sharp claws. Yellow Eyes stared at Jinho like a snake watching a mouse. "So," Veltar said, his voice deep and rough, "Earth sends a child to speak with warriors." Jinho stood up and bowed politely. "Commander Veltar, I'm Ambassador Jinho Park. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." Veltar laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Your species wants to trade with the Krex Empire? You want access to our markets and our technology." He walked around the table, his claws clicking on the metal floor. "Tell me, human, what has your species done to earn this right?" Jinho had prepared for this question. "We offer rare minerals from Earth, advanced computer systems, and cultural exchange. We believe trade benefits everyone involved." "Benefits?" Veltar stopped walking and stared at Jinho. "The galaxy is not about benefits. It is about strength. It is about proving you deserve to survive." His scales seemed to darken with anger. "Your species has never fought in the Great Wars. You have never conquered another world. You have never shown that you are strong." Jinho tried to stay calm. "Commander, we prefer peaceful solutions to conflicts. War destroys things that could be built together." This made Veltar even angrier. His eyes became bright yellow slits. "Peace? Peace is what the weak call their cowardice. In the galaxy, only the strong survive. The weak become slaves or food." Other aliens in the room began to whisper to each other. Jinho realized that many species believed the same thing as Veltar. To them, humans looked small and weak. "Let me show you something," Veltar said. He reached for his belt and pulled out a weapon that looked like a silver rod with blue lights on it. "This is a neural disruptor. It sends pure pain into the nervous system of any living creature. One shot from this weapon will make a Krex warrior scream for mercy." Jinho's heart started beating faster, but he did not move. "Commander, I came here to talk, not to fight." "There is no difference," Veltar replied. "Everything is a fight." He pointed the weapon at Jinho. "If you can take one shot from this and still stand, then maybe your species deserves our respect. If you cannot, then humans are too weak for galactic society." Jinho looked around the room. Every alien was watching him. He could walk away, but then Earth would never get another chance. He could try to run, but Veltar was much bigger and faster. He could call for help, but that would prove he was weak. "I accept," Jinho said quietly. Veltar smiled, showing sharp white teeth. "Brave words. Let us see if your body is as brave as your mouth." He adjusted something on the weapon, and the blue lights became brighter. Maximum power. The setting would kill most species instantly. Jinho closed his eyes and thought about Earth. He thought about his family, his friends, and all the humans counting on him. He opened his eyes and looked directly at Veltar. "Do it." The weapon fired with a sound like breaking glass. A bolt of blue energy hit Jinho in the chest and spread through his entire body. Pain exploded in every nerve. It felt like being struck by lightning while drowning in acid. His vision went white, and he could not breathe. But somehow he remained standing. The pain was terrible, worse than anything he had ever felt. His whole body shook, and sweat poured down his face. But his legs did not give out. His mind did not break. After a few seconds, the pain began to fade. Jin-Ho wiped the sweat from his eyes and looked at Veltar. The alien commander's mouth was open in shock. Every other being in the room was completely silent. "Is that it?" Jin-Ho asked, his voice shaky but clear. Veltar stared at the weapon in his hand, then at Jin-Ho, then back at the weapon. "Impossible," he whispered. Jin-Ho straightened his uniform and sat back down at the table. "Now, about that trade agreement." The news spread through Nexus Prime faster than a spaceship at light speed. Every alien on the station was talking about the same thing. A human had survived a full power shot from a Krex neural disruptor. Most beings thought it was just a story, but those who had been in the meeting room knew it was real. Dr. Yuki was in her laboratory when she heard the news. She was a Zephyrian, which meant she had pale blue skin and 6 thin tentacles growing from her head instead of hair. The tentacles moved when she was thinking, and right now they were moving very fast. Zephyrians were known across the galaxy for being smart. They loved to study new things and solve mysteries. When Yuki heard about the human, she became very excited. She had never heard of any species that could survive that much pain. She found Jin-Ho in the medical center, where a robot doctor was checking his injuries. The human looked tired but was sitting up and talking normally. This should have been impossible. "Excuse me," Yuki said politely. "I am Dr. Yuki. I study different species and how their bodies work. May I examine you? I promise it will not hurt." Jin-Ho looked at the alien doctor. Her tentacles were moving in a friendly way, and her large black eyes seemed kind. "I suppose that would be okay. Maybe you can explain what happened to me." Yuki used her medical scanner, a device that could see inside living bodies without cutting them open. What she found made her tentacles move even faster with excitement. "Amazing," she whispered. "Your nervous system is completely different from any species in our records." "Different how?" Jin-Ho asked. "Most aliens have pain sensors that connect directly to their brain," Yuki explained. "When something hurts us, the message goes straight there and makes us stop moving. But humans have extra pathways. When you feel pain, your brain can choose to ignore some of it." Jin-Ho thought about this. "So I still felt the pain, but my brain decided I could keep going anyway?" "Yes, exactly. And there is more." Yuki's scanner showed her even stranger things. Your body also releases chemicals that help you deal with pain and stress. Other species have this too, but humans have much more of it. While they were talking, Jin-Ho heard heavy footsteps in the hallway. The sound was too loud to be human and too heavy to be Zephyrian. Something big was coming. The door opened and a massive alien walked in. He looked like a giant bear, but his fur was dark red, and his claws were longer than Jin-Ho's fingers. His species was called Ursak, and they were known as the best fighters in the galaxy. "You are the human," the alien said in a deep voice. "I am Captain Gorix. I have heard strange stories about you." Jin-Ho stood up slowly. He was still sore from the neural disruptor. "I am Jin-Ho. Nice to meet you." Gorix laughed. "Nice? There is nothing nice about what I plan to do." He extended his claws, which gleamed like metal knives. "Ursak have fought every dangerous species in the galaxy. We have never met anyone we could not defeat. I do not want to fight you," Jin-Ho said calmly. "Too bad." Gorix moved faster than something his size should have been able to move. His claws slashed across Jin-Ho's arm, cutting through his uniform and into his skin. Jin-Ho cried out and stumbled backward. Blood ran down his arm, and the cuts burned like fire. But he did not fall down. He did not beg for mercy. He just stood there, holding his wounded arm, and looked at Gorix with steady eyes. The Ursak captain stared in shock. His claws were sharp enough to cut through metal. Those same claws had killed creatures twice the size of humans. But Jin-Ho was still standing. "Impossible!" Gorix whispered, the same word Veltar had used. Dr. Yuki quickly began treating Jin-Ho's wounds. "This is incredible," she said as she worked. You should have passed out from shock, but your vital signs are almost normal. More aliens began to gather in the medical center. Word was spreading that the human had now survived attacks from both a Krex warrior and an Ursak fighter. Everyone wanted to see this strange creature for themselves. A tall, thin alien with silver skin approached them. "I am Ambassador Zethus from the Galactic Council," he said. "We have been watching these events with great interest." "What kind of interest?" Jinho asked, still breathing hard from pain. "The kind that changes everything," Zethus replied. "No species has ever survived what you have survived. The Council needs to know what this means for the galaxy." Dr. Yuki finished bandaging Jinho's arm. "I need more time to study him," she said. "These readings do not make sense. According to everything we know about biology, he should be dead or unconscious." Captain Gorix was still staring at his own claws, as if he could not believe they had failed him. "Where are you?" he asked Jinho. Jinho sat down carefully, feeling very tired. "I am just a human from Earth. I do not understand what is happening any more than you do." But even as he said it, Jinho was beginning to realize that being human might mean something very different in a galaxy full of aliens than it did back on Earth. Jinho woke up in a dark place that smelled like rust and fear. His head hurt badly, and he could not remember how he had gotten there. The last thing he remembered was falling asleep in his room on the station after talking with Dr. Yuki. He tried to move but found that his hands were tied behind his back. He was sitting on a cold metal floor in what looked like a cage. Around him, he could hear voices speaking in languages he did not understand. "Finally awake, are we?" said a smooth voice from the darkness. Jinho looked up and saw an alien unlike any he had met before. This creature was tall and thin, with skin that looked like black metal. His eyes glowed red in the dark, and when he smiled, his teeth were like sharp silver needles. "I am Nexus," the alien said. "Welcome to my arena." "Arena?" Jinho's throat was dry, and his voice came out as a whisper. "The Crucible," Nexus explained, walking closer to Jinho's cage. "The most exciting entertainment in this part of the galaxy. Beings from across the stars come here to watch creatures fight to the death." Jinho felt his stomach drop. "I am a diplomat. You cannot do this." Nexus laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "I can do whatever I want down here. The station security does not come to the lower levels. And you, my dear human, are going to make me very rich." Other cages surrounded Jinho's prison. In the dim light, he could see other captured beings. There was a creature that looked like a giant insect, another that seemed to be made of living crystal, and something that moved like smoke but had glowing eyes. "Why me?" Jinho asked. "Because you are famous," Nexus said. "Everyone on the station is talking about the human who cannot be hurt. People will pay huge amounts of money to see if that is really true." A loud bell rang somewhere above them. Nexus clapped his hands together with excitement. "Time for your first fight," he announced. "Guards, bring the human to the arena." Two large robots grabbed Jinho and dragged him through a tunnel toward bright lights. He could hear the sound of hundreds of voices cheering and shouting. They pushed him through a doorway, and suddenly he was standing in the middle of a huge circular room. The arena was surrounded by seats full of aliens. They were all looking at him and making loud noises. Some were cheering, others were booing, and many were holding small devices that Jinho guessed were for betting money. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all species," Nexus announced through speakers around the arena, "tonight we have something special. The human who survived a Krex neurodisruptor and an Ursak claw attack." The crowd got even louder. Jinho looked around, trying to find a way to escape, but the arena walls were too high and too smooth to climb. His first opponent, Nexus continued, is a flame render from the volcanic worlds of Pyro 7. A gate opened on the other side of the arena, and something terrible came out. The flame render looked like a lizard the size of a small car, but its skin was made of living lava. Heat waves came off its body, and where it walked, it left burning footprints on the metal floor. Jinho had never fought anything in his life. He was a diplomat, not a soldier. But the creature was already moving toward him, and there was nowhere to run. The flame render opened its mouth and breathed fire. Jin-Ho threw himself to the side just in time. The flames hit the wall behind him, leaving melted metal running down like water. Jin-Ho noticed water pipes running along the arena walls. They were probably for cleaning the arena between fights. He had an idea. When the flame render breathed fire again, Jin-Ho ran toward the wall instead of away. The creature's fire hit the water pipes, breaking them open. Water sprayed everywhere, creating thick clouds of steam. The crowd could not see what was happening, but Jin-Ho could hear the flame render making confused noises. The steam was cooling its lava skin, making it slower and weaker. Jin-Ho grabbed a piece of broken pipe and used it to break more water lines. Soon the whole arena floor was flooded with an inch of water. The flame render's feet made loud hissing sounds every time it took a step. The creature tried to breathe fire, but the steam and water had cooled it down too much. Instead of flames, only smoke came out of its mouth. Jin-Ho waited until the creature was standing in the deepest part of the water, then broke the largest water pipe directly above it. Cold water poured down on the flame render like a waterfall. The creature made a sound like screaming metal as its lava skin cooled and hardened. Within seconds, it could not move at all. The arena fell completely silent. Then, slowly, the crowd began to cheer. Jin-Ho stood in the middle of the flooded arena, breathing hard and shaking with fear and exhaustion. He had won, but he knew this was only the beginning. Nexus would not let him go after just one fight. 6 days had passed since Jin-Ho first entered the arena. 6 days of fighting creatures that should have killed him easily. His body was covered in cuts, burns, and bruises. His diplomatic uniform was torn and stained with blood, but somehow he was still alive. The other prisoners had begun to look at him differently. At first, they thought he was just lucky. Now they whispered his name like he was some kind of legend. Jin-Ho did not feel like a legend. He felt tired, hurt, and scared. "How do you do it?" asked Kira, an alien with pale white skin and large silver eyes. Her species, the ethereal, were known for their wisdom and peaceful nature. She had been captured 3 months ago and forced to fight with weapons she had never wanted to touch. Jin-Ho sat against the cold wall of his cage, trying to rest before his next fight. "I do not know," he said honestly. "I just keep thinking that if I give up, I will never see my home again." "My people have a saying," Kira said softly. "The tree that bends in the storm does not break. But you do not bend. Human, you should have broken days ago." Through the bars of their cages, they could see Nexus pacing back and forth. The crime boss was angry. Very angry. His most popular fighter was supposed to be dead by now, but Jin-Ho kept winning fights that should have been impossible to win. "This is getting boring," Nexus said to his assistant, a small green alien with too many eyes. "The human wins, but barely. The crowd wants to see something exciting, something final." "What do you suggest, boss?" the assistant asked nervously. Nexus smiled his terrible smile. "Bring out the Void Stalker." Even the guards stopped moving when they heard those words. The Void Stalker was kept in the deepest part of the arena, in a special cage that blocked its power. It had never been defeated. Most fighters died just from being near it. "Boss," the assistant said carefully, "are you sure? The Void Stalker does not just kill. It destroys everything about a being. Their body, their mind, their soul." "Perfect," Nexus replied. "If the human survives this, then he really is impossible to kill. If he does not, then we have the greatest show in galaxy history." An hour later, Jin-Ho was pushed into the arena again. He could barely stand up straight. His left arm was broken from his last fight with a creature made of living rock. His right leg had deep cuts from fighting something with blade-sharp wings. But it was not his physical injuries that worried him most. For the first time since this nightmare began, Jin-Ho felt his hopes starting to die. He was so tired, so hurt, so far from home. The crowd was bigger than ever before. Word had spread that Nexus was bringing out his ultimate weapon. Aliens had come from across the station to see what would happen. "Tonight," Nexus announced, "we discover the truth about our human friend. Can anything actually kill him? Let us find out." The arena lights went out. In the complete darkness, Jin-Ho could hear something moving, but it was not the sound of footsteps or claws on metal. It was the sound of reality itself being torn apart. When the lights came back on, Jinho saw something that made his blood freeze in his veins. The Void Stalker was not really a creature. It was like a piece of empty space that had learned to move. It was shaped like a person, but it was made of absolute darkness. Looking at it hurt Jinho's eyes and made his mind feel strange. The creature began to move toward him, and Jinho felt something he had never experienced before. His life force was being drained away, not his blood or his breath, but the very energy that made him alive. Jinho fell to one knee. His vision began to turn gray. This was different from pain. Pain was something his body could handle, but this thing was attacking his very existence. The crowd became completely silent. Even they could feel the rawness of the Void Stalker's presence. Jinho fell forward onto his hands. He could not breathe. He could not think clearly. The creature was only a few steps away now, reaching out with hands made of nothingness. But as his vision faded, Jinho noticed something important. The arena's energy systems were flickering. The lights were getting dimmer. The force fields that kept the prisoners in their cages were losing power. The Void Stalker fed on life energy, but it was so hungry that it was draining the arena's power systems too. With the last of his strength, Jinho forced himself to move. Instead of trying to get away from the creature, he threw himself toward it. He positioned himself between the Void Stalker and the main power generator. The creature reached for him, but its hunger was too great. Instead of taking Jinho's life force, it drained the power generator completely. Every light in the arena went out. Every force field collapsed. In the darkness, Jinho heard the sound he had been waiting for. The other prisoners were breaking free from their cages. Now! Jinho shouted with what little voice he had left. The arena exploded into chaos as dozens of angry, desperate beings attacked their captors in the darkness. The lights flickered back on in the arena, but everything had changed. Nexus and his guards were tied up in the corner, surrounded by the freed prisoners who had spent months or years dreaming of this moment. Jinho lay on the ground where he had fallen, barely breathing but alive. Dr. Yuki rushed into the arena with a team of station security officers. She had been searching for Jinho ever since he disappeared from his room 6 days ago. When she found a hidden entrance to the illegal fighting arena, she had called for help immediately. "Jinho!" she called out, her tentacles moving frantically with worry. She knelt beside him and began scanning him with her medical device. "How are you still alive?" Jinho tried to smile, but he was too weak. "I am starting to wonder that myself," he whispered. The other prisoners gathered around them. Kira, the wise ethereal, placed her gentle hand on Jinho's shoulder. "This human saved us all," she told Dr. Yuki. "We had given up hope until we saw him fight." Fight! Gorix, the big Ursak captain, had arrived with a security team. He looked around the arena at the destruction and the defeated Void Stalker, which had become powerless without an energy source to feed on. "This looks like more than fighting. This looks like a miracle." As news of Jinho's survival spread through the station, something unexpected began to happen. Instead of being afraid of humans, other species started to become curious about them. Dr. Yuki worked day and night to understand what made Jinho so different. "I have studied hundreds of species," she explained to a gathering of scientists from across the galaxy. "But humans are unique. They do not have the strongest bodies or the fastest healing. What they have is something else." "What?" asked Dr. Vexon, a brilliant researcher from the Silicon Worlds. "They have hope," Dr. Yuki said simply. "When other species reach their breaking point, they break. When humans reach their breaking point, they find new strength they did not know they had." The news reached the Galactic Council within hours. These were the most powerful leaders from every major civilization, and they made decisions that affected trillions of beings across the galaxy. Ambassador Zethus, the tall silver alien who had met Jinho before, called an emergency meeting. "We need to discuss the human situation," he announced to the council chamber. "What situation?" asked Counselor Threx, whose species had dominated 3 star systems through military might. "One human survived some fights. This changes nothing." But Commander Veltar, who had first tested Jinho with his neural disruptor, stood up to speak. "It changes everything," he said quietly. I have spent my life believing that strength meant the ability to cause pain and fear. But I watched this human take more punishment than any Krex warrior could survive, and he used that strength to save others, not hurt them. The council chamber buzzed with conversation. Many species had built their civilizations on the idea that only the strongest could survive in the galaxy. The thought that there might be a different kind of strength was disturbing to some and exciting to others. Dr. Yuki presented her research to the council. Humans evolved on a world that constantly tested them, she explained. Ice ages, diseases, natural disasters, wars. Instead of making them cruel, it taught them to endure and to help each other survive. But what does this mean for us? Asked Counselor Nira, whose aquatic species valued wisdom above all things. It means we've been thinking about survival wrong, Dr. Yuki replied. We thought the galaxy was about conquest and dominance. But humans show us that survival can also be about resilience and cooperation. Jinho was still recovering in the medical center when Ambassador Zethus came to visit him. The alien diplomat looked different now, less formal and more thoughtful. The Council has made a decision, Zethus said. We want to offer Earth full membership in the Galactic Union, with all the benefits and responsibilities that come with it. Jinho was surprised. But I thought we had to prove we were strong enough. You did prove it, Zethus replied. Just not in the way we expected. Your species has something we need. When everything goes wrong, when all hope seems lost, humans find a way to keep going. In a galaxy full of dangers, that might be the most valuable trait of all. Months later, Jinho returned to Earth as a hero, but more importantly, he returned as the first human ambassador to a galaxy that was eager to learn from his species. Trade agreements were signed, technologies were shared, and cultural exchanges began. The arena where Jinho had nearly died was turned into a memorial for all beings who had suffered there. A simple plaque was placed at the center, with words written in dozens of languages. Strength is not the absence of breaking. Strength is what we do after we break. Commander Veltar, who had become an unlikely friend, attended the ceremony. You changed everything, he told Jinho. Jinho smiled, finally at peace. I think we change each other. And across the galaxy, other species began to understand that being human meant never giving up, no matter how impossible things seemed.